hectic news week, but a very fast news week as we dig in this afternoon to everything that's up in front of us. I'll start with the weather simply because I heard thunder outside the old home studio this afternoon, and I think we've got scattered showers just sort of bubbling up. It's that summertime pattern that most of us grew up with the heat of the afternoon, sometime after 2 o'clock. If you ever live in Central Florida, for example, you can set your watch by this kind of weather. And so it's absolutely normal to have that chance of afternoon storms that sort of bubble up, rain themselves out, not really a frontal system. So some of y'all are underneath that this afternoon, and good for y'all. I hope it doesn't rain on my brush pile because I really want to burn it this weekend. It's had about 6 or 7 days of dry weather, so I'm hoping to get some stuff done. Hope everybody's good. AJ, are you good, my friend? Everybody good?
Man, I'm too blessed to be depressed.
Do pleasantries as we get going. Is the cam up or not? I looked over here and it's distracting. I don't know.
No. You're good to go.
Okay, I see a big letter A on there, and I'm like, what does that stand for? Probably AJ. You should add a J to that. All right, let's get cranking. 545-9950 is the phone number. Y'all get on in here, and we'll get started this afternoon. I guess we need to start with this Fauci thing. It was the first thing this morning. A lot of shows have given their take on it. And it went down, as you would expect, party line vote in committee. But it's interesting, and it's a little bit complex. And I'll see if I can break it into plain English real quick. So what Rand Paul was able to do with his chairmanship of the committee is call the committee together to pull up a contempt vote for Anthony Fauci, pleading the fifth, 112 times in front of the world, instead of allowing Congress to do its oversight job and dig into the malfeasance and or misdirection and everything else that went on during the COVID era. Now, of course, Congress's questions go back to the origin story of COVID-19, which was Fauci himself and his funding machine that he oversaw, and this illicit money that he was sending to dark labs all over the world, by the way, against United States policy. And when that cat got out of the bag, this dude knew he was in trouble, and he started to spend. Then the spend turned into a lot of opportunists piled in. The people that wanted to steal the election used it to steal an election. The people that wanted to redistribute wealth used it to hand out money to people that didn't deserve it during that time period. And if you think about that whole thing, let me just, a little side note here, and I've given this speech before, but this was 100% from beginning to end a government crisis. This was a government manufactured and mismanaged and abusive crisis that had nothing to do with the innocence of just regular Americans, liberal, Republican, Democrat, I don't care, Yahoo, socialist. None of you out here in the real world with your belief systems and doing your life and raising your kids and loving your football team and going to work, none of y'all had anything to do with this. This started as government funding in government labs to develop a government bioweapon against human beings of some type that eventually, because of the Chinese government and other governments that were involved in the creation and the funding of that lab, did such a shoddy job that it either got out intentionally or not. It gets into the world, and then you've got the government response to the government's own problem. Think about all that. It was bad government from beginning to end. It was abusive government the minute the first dollar was sent to do this research, all the way to Fauci's cover-up, all the way to the lockdowns and the bad advice and the deaths and the businesses that were lost and the kids that were held behind and all the crap that came with it. All the emotional drama, the headlines, the political fallout, all that was 100% a government beast. The government mishandled this from the beginning. They caused the problem, set the world on fire, and then went about being the experts on putting the fire out, and everything they told us was misdirection and a lie and abusive. Government, beginning to end. Yet we sit here in a country that's embracing these Democrat socialist type people who want more of the same. They want more control, more central planning, more government resources. They want to steal more from people out here in the world that have worked hard to own what they own and to have what they have. They want to take more of that into their dirty system and use that system to control more people and to redistribute things. I think J.D. Vance said it pretty well yesterday. I'll misquote him, but he did some long form interviews. Can you tell we're already looking at 28? Even though we're just under 90 days from the midterms, there are people already looking down the road at the presidential. And I thought Vance did a pretty good job articulating the difference between traditional America and what we've always been about, and these idiotic people that are now embracing socialism. And it's simple. The socialists are not promising jobs and opportunity and upward growth and anything meaningful for you. They're just promising free stuff. They're not promising that you can have a chance to go earn your own. They're promising they're going to give you somebody else's stuff. They're thieves. And so anyway, so back to Fauci. So Fauci is the poster child of the moment for insidious government. It's the whole system. It's how all this came about, how he sits there at that age. By the way, you add to that the system protecting itself by giving the man a pardon. That's just the system rewarding him for his dirty work. While he got rich, and they got rich, and the pharmaceuticals got rich, and the people in Congress got rich, and we all got screwed. Some people are still trying to recover from the damage that was done during that time period. So Fauci, today what they did was take a contempt of Congress vote because he clearly did not participate in the hearing. That's generally where these contempt findings come. But Rand Paul tried to do, I think he's going to pull it off because it has happened. There is case precedent for a committee vote being sufficient to send the contempt charge over to the Justice Department for them to consider rather than going to the full Senate. Let me try to put that back into plain English. Normally the process would be a subject decides they're not going to testify at all. They're not going to even comply with the subpoena. And then Congress will have a contempt vote. Generally over in the Senate side, it has to go to the Senate, which means it's subject to the Senate rules, which means filibuster, which means you got to have 60 votes and all that. So what Paul did was take a precedent-setting move that has happened in the past and just vote it out of the committee and have the committee relayed that finding over to justice to determine whether contempt has taken place. Now, that could be a massive flaw. It's going to be easy for a D.C.-based judge to toss any kind of legitimate legal case if they decide to pursue the charges. It's going to take not much for a D.C.-based judge to say, well, the Republicans didn't follow the process. This contempt charge didn't go through the proper channels even to get to justice, and throw the whole case out. So what are we doing here? Why did Rand Paul take the chance of bypassing the dilatory tactics of his fellow senators? Because I really think what he's trying to do is it's the process itself. It's not even the outcome. I think most people understand that some people just get away with it in Washington, and Fauci's probably going to get away with it in terms of ever being imprisoned or held criminally liable. He just will. Now, look, states are going to try to pursue him, but I don't think that's going to go anywhere. I really don't. I think that's just AG's talking tough. I mean, I applaud it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying they shouldn't try. The left would try. They'd make up cases. We just saw them do it. And there's a legitimate claim here, I think, that there was harm in these states based on the advice Fauci gave. And the advice he gave wasn't innocently mistaken. He wasn't just a scientist working on the operating on the information he had, giving his best advice. He was covering for his own ass and the asses of the Chinese and others that were involved in that lab the whole time. The whole shutdown and blowing the thing into what he did was so disproportional, and I think that was part of the deflection. So I don't think the state charges are going anywhere, and I don't think this thing from Rand Paul's really going to go anywhere, but it is important because we got another question here. It's unlike any other time in our history. I want to just say this as another side note. The founders were brilliant. They were absolutely God-inspired, brilliant men to put together a document that has survived so many tests. So many tests. We've survived a civil war. The whole country came apart and got back together. We've survived a lot of things. So what we're dealing with now is not really new. The country's always being confronted by stuff. And the American left, from the beginning, has always tested that document. They despise the Constitution down deep because they want to control you. And the whole nature of the Constitution is you can't be controlled. God is your creator. That's where your rights come from, not government. And the Constitution protects you against government. Every word in it, especially the Bill of Rights, is directed at protecting the individual from too much government and to being abused. But the left, with all their schemes and ideas and phony fear tactics and everything else, they have always sought to water that down because they want central control. It's really part of this genesis that is pulling together this Islamo-Commie nexus where they're feeding off each other because they have a common enemy. And that common enemy it's personified by us, people in the middle of America, traditional Americans, conservatives, MAGA, whatever you want to label yourself. But it's really targeted at your freedom because it's targeted at control. These people want to run your life. The Islam wants to do it because they think Allah has told them to do it 1,400 years ago, and they've been pursuing it since. They follow some very literally what Muhammad taught, and that is subdue your enemy, cut their throats, and take over. And they do it through infiltration. They have a lot of schemes. But the commies have the same goal. They just want to use the government to control you and your life and everything you do and say and what line you have to get in to get this next thing that should be your God-given right to pursue on your own. But they don't like that. They've never liked that. So they're attacking our Constitution. Fauci's attack was an attack on the Constitution. And so I think we're at a time where there's going to be yet another constitutional test. We've had a lot of those in the Trump era, particularly since the lawfare kicked in. And right now they test everything Trump does. And largely he's won most of those cases on a federal level on constitutional grounds. Some things he didn't win, like birthright citizenship, but he's been executive power has been upheld as a co-equal and distinct branch of government where Congress and courts can't tell the president how to administer the state, period. We just had one this week where a mask law, I believe this was in New York, was also struck down because that law would require federal agents to not wear masks in that state. The states don't have authority to manage the federal government. That's not their purview. They don't have the power to do that. So back to Fauci. I know this is kind of a philosophical ramble, but I believe what's going to happen here, and I think and I hope this is the real goal, is, and I talked about this yesterday, Rand Paul is trying to set up a constitutional test of the Fauci pardon. Okay, the only way for the pardon to really be reviewed is there has to be a conflict. It's how court cases get into court. There has to be a legitimate constitutional conflict of interest and an actual case that's brought for the court to review whether the pardon was legitimate in the beginning. So now Fauci, because the pardon is all part of this. It's part of his citation of the Fifth Amendment. It's part of all of the discussions the day he was in front of Congress. This is all meaningful stuff. So the auto pen pardon may be subject to scrutiny because this case makes it into some kind of court venue. If it can get that far, it's going to be uphill. But even if Fauci never sees the inside of a jail, if they remove that pardon through whatever process, could set precedent for the other pardons that were illicit that were given. And it could open him up to charges of perjury from his past testimony. I mean, it's a can of worms at that point if he loses this 11-year pardon coverage. And I think that's the whole goal of what we saw today. So don't get your hopes up. I don't think by any stretch we're going to see this old sleazebag in handcuffs. It just doesn't happen. If you're Hillary, you get away with it. If you're Joe Biden, sure, I got classified documents. If you're, but I'm too senile to be tried. If you're Hillary, well, it's your buddy James Comey says, well, no prosecutor would really go after Hillary. It's Hillary. Plus all the dead people in her wake. There's so many people that get away with things. Benghazi, are you kidding me? This whole shadow government thing that Barack Obama ran during Trump's first term and then after, running around like he did, trying to pull levers and interrupt the subsequent administration, that's treasonous. That guy should be held on very serious charges. The whole manufactured scandal in the first term over the Russia stuff, completely made up out of Obama's office. He and Hillary and Comey and those guys, Clapper and all those guys, conspiring to just manufacture a case to give them something to do to interrupt this administration. And they did it. They pulled that off for a long time. They They didn't convict him because there wasn't a crime, but that's just abuse, man. This country, I think, started dying. Some people would take it back sooner than that, but I really think we started on some kind of death march, some suicide pact, right about 2019, maybe prior to that, but in that era. And this was all part of the storytelling. And it has to be looked at, all of it. It has to be reviewed. I don't think we can move forward as a country if we just let them get away with this stuff. Even if no one is held accountable, at least we open some eyes to all of the absolute government-oriented manufactured things that they're doing to us. I saw somebody post yesterday. They were like, I feel like everything we're presented with is just fake. And I started reading this post. This was some conservative podcaster guy. I see him all the time online. I forget who it was, but he was just saying, like, the schools, they're not really teaching. Look at what the universities have turned into. None of the Senate is just lollygagging and going through motions and procedures. They're not really doing anything. Everybody's just operating in this theater mode. And the news itself, they cover the drama and not the actual details of things anymore. Journalism has died and failed on the vine. It is a weird world right now, and I don't know that all this AI development is going to help it either. But, well, there's a little bit of an opening ramble. Just thoughts right off the top based on this Fauci thing. 545-9950 if you want to get on the show. We'll talk about things. I won't be this heavy the whole show. I'm actually in a pretty good mood today. And y'all bring what you've got, too. 545-9950. Allen and Company, first sponsor up on the show tonight. Man, the Thompsons, I just think the world of them. They're just the sweetest family to start with. And I love working with good people. People that know their stuff. When I find a nice person that's also competent in business, they got my business. I run into so much incompetence nowadays with people that present themselves as knowing what they're doing. They don't know what they're doing. And so when you go to Allen, you'll get a sense of that right away. Allen's a master jeweler. It's a low pressure environment. There are no schemes. There's no sales pitchy stuff. They're not trying to put you in a box and make you buy something you don't want. So many pressure tactics nowadays, especially with marketing. You just go in there and get to know them. Take your time, browse around, ask questions, leave, come back. When you're ready, they're ready, and they'll sell you something beautiful, something that'll make a memory, and they're just the best folks. In Vestavia, pretty good location for most of y'all to get to. Right in the middle of Highway 31 on the Big Hill. I like to tell y'all there on the car wash side. As Christmas approaches, start considering your gift list. And if it's fine jewelry, go by and see Allen and Company and see what I mean. It's Allen and Company in Vestavia. Back here in just a minute. All right, y'all, welcome back in here. Leland Live, Talk 99.5. As we get cranked up again this segment. Let me go back to Fauci for a minute. I've got so many rambly things we could talk about with Fauci. A good buddy of mine just texted and said, could people individually sue Fauci? And that's a broad answer, too. Not trying to play a legal analyst or anything, but having been exposed to both sides, the criminal and civil side of our system. Generally, the short answer is, well, you can bring a suit. You can always bring a suit. A lot of lawsuits are just designed nowadays. Our civil justice system is pure abuse. It's just you bring the case to intimidate somebody out of money and never actually go to court. And sometimes the case doesn't have to be that good. A lot of these big companies will just sit back and write a check to make you go away. It's cheaper than paying their lawyers to beat your ass. So people get paid, especially the lawyers that bring these frivolous things. So you can go find you a $2 lawyer out there anywhere. They're on billboards all over the place, and they're on the radio, and you hear them all the time. They'll actually bring a case. There used to be there's an old saying that you can sue a ham sandwich or whatever. There's also a saying that you can indict a ham sandwich. But so yes, somebody could try. Even more difficult would be a class action case on behalf of a group of people that were injured based on what Fauci did. I would not be surprised to see people moving forward. But there's two types of immunity that get connected to this whole thing. One is for the pharmaceutical companies that Congress gave them. And because Fauci, some of the harm came from the drugs, some of it from the medical stuff. So there's that layer between Fauci and accountability of where the damage was caused. And then there's the fact that it's almost impossible to sue federal officials in their federal capacity on a personal level to get, say, money out of Fauci. In the congressional hearing the other day, he's worth about $12 million, which is peanuts. The other answer to the civil question is lawyers really won't look at a case unless there's a pot of money. They got to know where the money's going to come from. If they don't have a money target, most of them don't care about the justice. They're just looking at the money. So, no, I doubt it'll happen. I mean, it could happen, but I doubt any case like that could be successful. I mean, you could clean Fauci out in an afternoon. He's not worth that much compared to the damage he did. So I don't think jail time is going to happen or loss of any wealth, but his ego has been kicked in the kiwis in a way that's very, very justified. The people see him as a villain now, and that in some way is also justice. All right, get on back in here, Leland Live, Talk 99.5. I was just talking about those thunderstorms I could hear out there. We're in that pattern that we talked about at the beginning of the show, where a good chance of those in the afternoon, below severe limits, all that stuff. But man, we still got several things out in the tropics lined up. You never know when the big one's going to hit and mess with your home. Same thing applies when it comes to that secondary tornado season that we'll get around the holidays. It's a little mini season that we have here in Alabama. I've covered so many tornadoes back in the day when it would be snowing. I mean, right after the tornado's over, suddenly it starts snowing because of the changing of the seasons. But bottom line is you could suddenly need a roofer, even though your roof may be good now and you're not having any problems. And you're tuning me out right now because the roof's not on your mind. When it gets on your mind because you've got an emergency, that's when you're running around and panicked and need a reference. And you may forget that I told you about Greg Nelson, but you'll reach out. People reach out to me all the time going, oh, Lord, I need a roofer. I need a roofer now. Who's your roofer again? And that's fine. I appreciate when people do that. But my advice is put Greg Nelson's number aside. I would, little life hack, create a whole list of home experts, many of which are on the show, and just have them on go, knowing that they've got the thumbs up and endorsement here of the show. And then when you do have a problem, they will help you out. And that's Greg. If he's taught me so much about how the rules work. Luckily, I've never had a big incident. They will be coming out to do a new install on the home edition to try to match it up with the house. And that's so important to get that right. And I know Greg will do that for us. But I've not had one of those nightmare incidents where you've got a leak and everything's going crazy. So keep the number. I'm going to give it to you here in a minute. And know that he's got almost 30 years in the business. This is a guy whose whole family works in the business, 2 generations with their family name writing on what they do. They're competent. They do the install correctly, which is a big deal, of course. But they also understand intuitively from all these years in the business what these insurance companies are going to require, what they won't allow, what is proper, how you document it and present to them. Look, the storm came and it did this, and I need this fixed. Because you could easily get your case turned down. If you follow one of these fly-by-night trolls that'll just show up in your neighborhood after a storm, they could talk you into trying to file a claim. They're rolling their dice. They don't have anything to lose by pushing you toward a claim that might not be legit. Then you could lose your whole policy. So having competence on your side, having an expert on your side of the equation to get a settlement with your insurance companies is the right way to go. And that's what the insurance companies prefer. They want good communication and documentation. So Greg's team is so good at that. All of it. Here's that number. Write this down, stick it somewhere because you might need them. And of course, it goes without saying, if your roof's just getting old and it's time because they do have a expiration date, let them come over and give you a good quote and get that done for you. They've got finance companies that can even come alongside and help you finance a bigger project like that. It's Storm Restoration Roofing, 205-542-3531. 205-542-3531. Somebody the other day said, I saw your Leland Live truck the other day. And I said, I don't have a Leland Live truck, but it was Greg has our logo on his truck with some of the other folks that he does business with. I think that's cool, man. Again, 205-542-3531, Storm Restoration Roofing. One more thing about Fauci. Somehow I got in that opening ramble, I forgot to say this. And this is kind of eye-popping. My man Gary just texted me during the break and said, yeah, what about how stupid is he if he thinks he's that smart that he put all this diary info on a government computer? And that's important. Let's explore that for a minute. It's not just that that he, got, well, the info in the computer is a huge embarrassment to him because it contradicts everything he was telling us. And it's time and it's dated, and we know when he wrote it in there. And it wasn't a Marsha Brady Dear Diary where he's laying on his bed with his feet kicked up, taking notes on he got his first kiss today. That's not the kind of diary. The diary is kind of misused there. He was keeping some kind of journal on a government computer and tried to get rid of it, and so did the people that were working around him. There are even entries where he ordered stuff to be deleted, and Congress has those emails where he told people, okay, we're all going to meet tomorrow at 2, delete this information. This one he was trying to get containment on the message. What he did was so sinister. From the funding of this dangerous technology to the cover-up where he boxed out people that would be skeptics that understood the science. He got a bunch of sycophants around him that all needed favors from him. Remember, he wielded billions of dollars for universities and other scientists. He had life or death approval over their programs, and they didn't want to buck Fauci, so they just kind of nodded and went along with Fauci. It's so many people failed us. He's the personification of it, but so many people that we don't know because they're just bureaucrats or working in these myriad of agencies that were and are still around. They have very much power that we don't know much about, but they still have power over guidance in our lives. And so he was dumb enough to do this on a government computer. That's how the Senate committee got the so-called diary, and that's how they put the diary out. Now, we know that story by now. We learned all this pretty much last week or the week before when the diary came out. And so it was an embarrassment. It had him in a contradictory position. But now we find out today, and this is a new turn in all this, and I'm just digging this. They have, the Senate committee has a copy of, they now have a copy of Fauci's iPhone. And it's not his actual phone, but it's his iCloud backup. Let's talk. Many of you have iPhones. I don't know how the Samsungs work or the other phone services work, but most of us in modern times, if you have a device, most of everything you have on there is not even on that device. You're just looking at a peephole to the cloud. Your photos are stored on a hard drive in space, or not really in space, but you know what I mean, in this nebulous cloud that we talk about all the time. Well, so is Fauci. So Fauci had, and what I don't know is this his government issued iPhone, or was this a personal iPhone that they subpoenaed? And they didn't get, I don't think they have the physical phone, which isn't necessary, but they got access to his backup file in the date range where they need to be able to investigate what he was doing and saying. And you can almost bet that those communications are going to be even more damning than this Dear Diary stuff where he was fluffing himself to himself, which is weird in and of itself. You know what? It reminds me of Comey and Comey's self-reflection and making seashell art on the beaches and this obsession with their own image. Guys get to this point. We talk about the women all the time doing stunts and showing off and trying to be TikTok stars. By the way, a lot of those hags have been run out of Congress and out of immediate politics. But the men are just as bad in a different way. And it's these old codgers like Fauci that sees themselves as some great man that deserves a statue or Mount Rushmore. And the worst punishment for him may be his ego. It may be how foolish he looks, how contradictory he looks, and it may not be. I mean, what good is a jail sentence for an 85-year-old guy? What's he going to be in there? 5 years tops? Who knows? So I think by putting that information out there today, what they're prepping us for is that there's going to be more. This isn't the end of the noise around Fauci that took place the last week and a half. It didn't end with that hearing. We'll have to let the drama play out over the contempt charge. We'll have to let justice take it up and decide whether they want to do it. I heard an analyst today say that, they always laugh off these contempt things in Congress because they come sometimes from Congress, and DOJ doesn't take orders from Congress. They don't have to do what Congress says. And if you're, for example, y'all remember when Eric Holder was held in contempt under, what was that operation? Sounded like the movie Fast and Furious or something. They got people killed through a undercover gun running operation on the border and then tried to cover up for it. And Holder was being called into Congress and refused to go. I mean, he just refused to participate at all and was held in contempt. Now, granted, that was an issue over a subpoena. So here was the process. Congress decided to hold him in contempt, voted for contempt, sent it over to the Justice Department for it to be prosecuted. Who was in charge of the Justice Department? Eric Holder. He wasn't going to investigate himself. If he had any class or dignity or ethics, they would have called in a special counsel, let them sort it out. But they didn't do it. They just ignored it. They just flat ignored Congress like they didn't exist. Another previous example is this Lois Lerner. Do y'all remember her? And why the hell can't we, maybe the statutes have run on her case, where she was using her power in the IRS to target people in organizations, particularly Tea Party-oriented organizations. She was denying them tax status so they couldn't organize. and a lot of other harassment things that came under the charges against her. She also just refused to cooperate with congressional investigations, and Justice just blew it off. They covered for her like they did Hillary and Biden and others by blowing it off. So it becomes very partisan. It depends on who the AG is when the charges are brought. But now we're sitting here in a Trump Justice Department with a competent AG on his way in full time. And I don't know if they'll take it up or not, what creative angles they've got to take a contempt charge straight out of a committee, but we'll see what they do with it. There is precedent very recently. Let's talk about some other stuff. Merrick Garland, when he was, by now we all understand, this guy concocted the raid on a former president's home. This guy was as abusive as any attorney general we've had in probably the last 30 years. But under Merrick Garland, remember, they went after some Trump officials, Steve Bannon, and who was the other one? Others for contempt. It was the same thing. It was a contempt of Congress charge. Bannon decided he wasn't going to play ball, and they convicted him. So it's not unheard of that justice will take one of these things up. And this new information that we have out here in the public, that there's a backup of Fauci's phone, is information that if it doesn't wind up in a court case and it doesn't get before the attorney general, or they decide not to pursue it or whatever, then of course the public has a right to know that. There'll be FOIA requests immediately filed. Now that that information is public, there should be aggressive media outlets demanding to see the evidence that was secured by that subpoena. Now, normally if it's a personal phone, now you're getting into sticky issues. Whether do they vet out? Generally, they'd have a third party vet the pertinent information from him texting his wife, "Good night, pumpkin lips. I wish I was home tonight, working hard here at the old lab." Whatever, you sort those things out from the stuff that's Jermaine, Tito, and LaToya to the case, all of the Jacksons. And then the public gets to see that. I don't know that the Senate's gone to the trouble to vet that or redact those things. So there's going to be a process here. But that was a pretty big revelation today to know that they also got his phone, which, again, just having seen these kind of cases get put together, people are so not guarded. By the way, it's a case in point for you. When you delete something on your phone, it didn't get deleted. It's in the cloud. It's in a backup. Even on your phone, it sits there until it's overwritten. And so that kind of technology is not foolproof. You're being watched and stalked with every single thing you do, and you're volunteering to do it because of your device. So the advice I would have for you is don't go off and create a bioweapon and try to get a bunch of people killed with it and then cover for yourself because you're so arrogant that you think you're untouchable. I wouldn't do that if I was y'all. I wouldn't commit really mass homicide with public policy and then try to get away with it and start pleading the fifth if I were y'all. Just a pro tip from the Leland Live program. Douglas Cooling and Heating, they were out at my house today and got me fixed up in a hurry. I was out working. I had to pour some concrete today, so they showed up here just right when I was getting back home this morning and just did a fine job. I had, and I have to admit something to y'all. I got to be real with you. I was so embarrassed. I had not changed my filters in a minute. And it's been a minute since I called Douglas to come out. Now I'm part of their program, their service program. And so every day I'm sitting, I'm lecturing y'all about get your service done. And I was behind, and my filter it was embarrassing. You ever have company come over and they look around and the house is a mess? Well, here comes Douglas over to the house, and my filters were a mess. And I felt like a big giant hypocrite. They pulled that. I pulled out the first one and took a look at it before they got there, and it looked like a rabbit. It looked like something out of the Birmingham Zoo. And that was part of the problem. The system was just kind of choked off. And so here's the deal. Y'all reach out to Douglas and get this kind of work done. Do better than me, even though I encourage you every single day to get this done. So Mason took care of me today, and I appreciate him spending so much time on the system. And he went ahead and did some service work for me, and it turned out it was not anything major. Now I got that unit's cooling again, and the next time I'll see them will be on this new install. Here's what you need to know about them. They're straightforward. They've been around since 1972 and built a reputation on telling you the truth about your system. They realize you're in a vulnerable position. Most of us don't understand the mechanics of heating and air. We don't want to. So we're a little bit vulnerable in that moment to anybody that would try to upsell you. And they don't want to do that. They just want to give you the right prescription, give you your options, put it all in writing, let you make your decision, and then do what you need to get done, because they know you'll come back time and time again. And when it's time for an install, when you get to that point, we'll all get to that point, you're going to call them first because you trust them to do that work. That's just smart. That's good business. Plumbing, they do some electrical work. It's really a home services company. And I've trusted them for 17 years on every house I've bought and sold since then. And they were just out hanging out with me today, and I appreciate all the good work. I had a lot going on today. We had stuff going on all around the house, and we wiggled that van in here and got it done. It's calldouglas.com if you want them over to your house. If your system's not quite doing what it should in this thick heat, let them help. It's calldouglas.com. License number 2017181. Calldouglas.com. Back in a minute. Y'all, Alabama Gold Refinery's over there waiting on you if you've ever thought about starting to invest in precious metals. it is an investment. Unlike some other dumb things I buy. Look around, see all these guitars back here. I'd be better off if they were in gold, but I do enjoy them. Some of you understand that too, all the metals. Silver is actually percentage-wise. Last time I checked, it's outperformed gold in about the last year. It's been amazing. It's a timeless investment. It's been that way since human history. Steve can trace all that back for you and just explain it. He's such an expert. He's enthused about what he does, and I love that. Love that about his shop. It's interesting to go in there, the things people have brought in, the things that are for sale. And I love that it's an exchange. So they'll buy from you, trade with you, sell to you, all of the major metals. Let them help. Unload those old pieces that you're not using anymore, and let Steve give you fair value, or bring your stuff in, or bring your cash in, and he'll sell you gold. He'll buy it from you, all of that. Good shop, downtown Homewood, real central location, right across from that big, tall Regents multi-story building in Homewood. You can't really miss that building if you go to Homewood. It's alabamagoldrefinery.com, alabamagoldrefinery.com. Okay, let's talk about McConnell for a minute. There's been a sighting. There's been some proof of life, so to speak. The family put out a statement today. He's been missing in public for, I think the count now is about 53 days. They're playing games with his health. If he is alive, there are people that suggest that he's already deceased. I mean, there's no way to prove that, but they're hiding something with this guy. So here's what they said today. They put out, the family, that is, his wife, who's also a famous bureaucrat from around town, put out a statement saying that he had been moved from a rehab facility where they had parked him for whatever reason. They're not even being clear on what he's being rehabbed about from his situation, and that he will be recovering at home now and will still not be available to the Senate at least through the August recess. So here's how that works. The Senate always takes most of the month of August off. I think it's at the end of this week. They'll all go home, and look, I'm not saying they're not working, because even when you go home as a senator, there's stuff to do, but a lot of them will take junkets and take these, what they call CODELs, where the taxpayers pay for them to go on a fact-finding mission. It's always overseas. It's never to like Aniana. It's always a fact-finding mission to some exotic country. Richard Shelby was notorious for this stuff. And so they've all got plans. They know they've got plans. They'll all be taking time off. So that buys McConnell and any replacement for McConnell another 3 weeks. And they can get away with this for several reasons. Part of the two-step is Thune's not calling anything that significant that McConnell's going to be needed over right now, because he's never going to get the SAVE Act up. They're trying to rush through some of Trump's appointees because they need to throw him a bone. He's pissed at them about the SAVE Act. So they're playing games with Trump over that. And but if we got in a critical situation, which is under Thune's control, we wouldn't have McConnell available. In a tight Senate with, what do they got, 53 votes, and 3 or 4 of those people are flakes. You've got Cornyn, who's on his way out because he got his butt whipped. You got Tillis, who's quitting because he's a wuss. You got Lindsey Graham just died, so his freshman senator sister is there. It's a weird little mess right at the margins right now. So this McConnell thing, whether Washington is playing along with it or the Kentucky folks are trying to pull a fast one, it's embarrassing. And here's the point I want to make about it. We've made Joe Biden jokes for the last, well, probably 15 years. I mean, he's been a Roomba for a good while before he even ever became president. And we've got other octogenarians and others that are in office that have no business in these offices at some point, because whether they're good, decent people and have all their faculties, they're not capable of handling the job. And that's the critical thing. It's not necessarily age, it's ability. And McConnell's clearly demonstrated for a while now he doesn't have the ability to do it, just like Biden did. And all the Republicans just hold their nose and hold their jokes and look the other way. And it just looks hypocritical. Hold McConnell to the same standard you held Biden to. And then you look consistent to people that don't care about your party, but they want some honesty. And the party needs to come together and do something about this McConnell situation. I think they're just trying to run the clock on the year with it. We'll see. And by the way, talk about egos. It's just indecent. What Jill Biden did with Joe Biden was indecent. It's the same thing with the McConnell family. It's just indecent. Have some respect for yourself. Back here in a minute.